There's only 3 in here.
You asked me for 3.
No, I asked you for a full bottle.
But you wrote that
Was this bottle full of pills?
3.
Were there more pills in here?
Yeah.
What did you do with them?
I threw them in toilet.
The Fall is a film that came out in 2006 that's written and directed by Tarsem Singh. So, The Fall is a $50 Patreon request that comes from TheOncomingStorm, and much like a lot of the requests that I get from TheOncomingStorm, this is a film that I basically have never heard of until this point and knew nothing about going into it. I mean, it was recommended a few times in the Discord, but that's basically it. The only thing that TheOncomingStorm told me in preparation for the film was to prepare for stunning cinematography. So after watching The Fall, I can say that he was absolutely correct, because this film has honestly some of the most stunning cinematography that I've ever seen. And I know it's a cliche to say this, but it really is one of those cases to where every single scene and every single frame of this film has so much intention behind it, so much creative effort, and you can just tell that both the director and the director of photography really cared about how this film looks and treated the framing and the camera work in general with delicacy. So even if you watch this film and you didn't really end up enjoying it, which I don't really see how you couldn't enjoy this film. I think it's an awesome film. But even if you didn't enjoy it, you would at the very least just get a visual treat from start to finish. And I gotta say, at first, I was a little bit skeptical, because this film very early on establishes that this is gonna take a certain angle throughout the entire film. And that concept and that angle is essentially just the film going back and forth between a hospitalized adult that's telling a story to a child and then actually dramatizing the story that is being told. And I was a bit worried because it's not the most original concept, but I gotta say, it pulls it off incredibly well. Like, to me, this is the best version and the best possible angle that I've seen this type of film tackled. And in terms of the presentation of the dramatization of the story, I already mentioned that the cinematography is basically immaculate, but there's an interesting aspect to how it looks, because it looks like there's an element of artifice to it. It definitely looks like something that is not completely authentic and real, and I actually really like that, because it really made it seem like you're witnessing how a character is imagining the story. It makes it feel incredibly self-aware and also humorous at times. The Oncoming Storm told me an incredible fact, which is the fact that apparently this film took over 4 years to produce, and it took place in over 28 different countries. So you can tell that the filmmaker Tarsem Singh was truly dedicated to make this film exactly the way that he envisioned it. You can tell that this is truly coming from a passion and truly coming from a desire to share his personal art with the world. And I think it's amazing, because this film itself is also a celebration of art and imagination. Because the adult character that's telling the story, you can tell that he's projecting a lot of his life struggles and a lot of his life's experiences through the story that he's telling to this child. And you can also tell that the child that is being told the story is being deeply impacted by it. She is truly invested in what this man has to say. And it's through a combination of the actual story details being told, plus what's actually happening currently in the hospital, that makes it to where both of these characters are changed and evolved through the entire situation. And this isn't really an easy, patty cake, wholesome film. I mean, it is wholesome, but it deals with really heavy and dark themes. I mean, this film deals with guilt and regret and heartbreak and depression and suicide. I mean, this film goes in dark places, and especially when you have a child in the mix that is learning about the complexity of these things, it gets really tough. I'm not gonna lie, the third act sequence of this film, where the child is being told the ending to the story, made me incredibly emotional. I mean, it's probably because I just have an extreme weak spot for children crying in film. Especially if it has to do with their childlike reality being completely broken and shattered. And that's probably why the ending of the Florida Project always shatters me to pieces. But obviously I found it to be extremely effective stuff. It definitely impacted me in a lot of different ways because it just works on so many levels. It works from the standpoint of, just a writing and character standpoint, just the evolution of these characters and the amount of emotion that you feel for them. And it also just works in terms of a thematic standpoint. Again, it goes back to the point that through the power of imagination and art, you can really deliver something that can be life-changing for the better. And, that's the case for these characters, and that can be the case for the people watching the film itself. There's also a little portion in the end that I really loved, where it's also kind of celebrating the beauty of filmmaking itself, because you have characters that are, interacting with the film that they're watching, and it's just something that you can tell is a really therapeutic and beautiful experience for them. So I ended the review and then realized there were 3 very important things that I didn't talk about that I just had to talk about. So I came back on camera just so I can mention these 3 things. The first one being the opening to this film. The opening to this film reminds me so much of Antichrist. It almost seems like a homage to Antichrist because it's all in black and white, and you have this kind of dramatic orchestra opera type music to it, and it's all in slow motion. So it has almost every aspect that is also present in the Antichrist opening. And I think it's really well done. I don't think it's as masterfully done as the Antichrist opening, but it was still really awesome to see something like that in the opening sequence. So the second thing I wanted to talk about was that there's actually a homage to a scene in Baraka. I also have a review on Baraka if you want to check that out, but Baraka is basically a lot like Koyaanisqatsi. It's this kind of documentary odyssey. And in one of the segments in Baraka, you have this iconic chant sequence, and that chant sequence is basically present in this film and almost filmed the exact same way. And I just thought that was really awesome to see on screen as well, and I thought I should mention that. And the final thing that I really wanted to talk about, that I was kicking myself in the head over for not talking about, is that there's a handful of absolutely breathtaking transitions. And the 2 that blew me away the most were these graphic match transitions. One of them was a shot of a butterfly that eventually dissolved into an island, and it's just so seamless the way it was transitioned. The other one was basically another graphic match transition where it's centered on a character's face, and then it dissolves into the pattern of a desert. And I was like, that is such delicacy. Again, it goes back to the amount of delicacy that I mentioned that's involved in the filmmaking and the cinematography, and apparently also the editing as well. But yeah, obviously I think this film is incredible and beautiful in so many different ways, not only in just the filmmaking aspects, in terms of just the cinematography and the amount of delicacy and creative effort that was poured into the direction and the presentation of this film, but it's also in just what it had to say about the uniqueness and the power of imagination and art, and how that can be so moving and special for someone's life. So I'm going to give The Fall a soft 9 out of 10. Really fantastic stuff. I'm sure there's quite a few out there who have never heard of this film, or either have heard of it but just haven't gotten around to watch it. I implore you to go watch it as soon as you can. I can't promise you that you're going to love it as much as I did, but I think overall you're going to be glad you watched it. But either way, that's all I got to say about The Fall. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, just give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.